welcome to the Good Art Friends, where good friends discuss good art. Jonathan, my good friend, how are you doing on this chilly February evening?
I'm pretty good. Yeah, here in North Carolina, we went from fake spring back to second winter.
Yeah,
And soon we'll be approaching the pollinating, if I remember the calendar correctly.
soon. Yeah, we got a few
Yeah.
weeks probably, but yeah, it's coming. Though I don't think anyone, in the Northeast does not want to hear us complaining about our cold
No.
50-degree days right now.
No. But I do want to quickly tangent on the pollinating, right?
Mhm,
The first time that it happened when I was living here, I actually went back to Illinois during spring break while I was in college, came back to South Carolina, and I looked around and I'm like, why is there all this sidewalk chalk that got washed away everywhere? 'Cause I had no clue about all of this yellow pollen that was everywhere.
It is rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's not great. But what is good? What's been good in your life or in the art that you've been partaking in of late?
Yeah. And the thing that is becoming that's going to be a new running bet this year, I've just been playing a ton of games.
Mm,
Um,
yes, yes.
so
The
yeah,
backlog.
I'm working through the backlog. Citizen Sleeper was really cool. A little computer character RPG. That
Hmm.
was fun. I finished Inscription. Um,
Oh, tell me about that. That sounded wild.
Yeah. It's a must play game, I would say. Um right now I'm working on Echoes of Wisdom. I'm almost done with that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Solving
But
everything with beds.
oh, for sure. Everything with bets. Everything. Outside of that, in other media, Last Dinosaurs, an Australian band I really like, just re-recorded and released their 10th anniversary version of their album Wellness, which was one of
Hmm.
my favorite albums that I listened to. I think one of my favorite albums of the year when it came out in 2015. And they're really cool, good things in between our last time talking and this is I got tickets to two sold out shows. I'm gonna go
Hmm.
see the Beths sold out, and I'm going on my
Ooh, that'll be good.
first solo vacation to go see a sold out show of American football. So I'm very
All right.
excited for
In
that.
Asheville, right? Is that where you
That's
had for
correct.
that one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. Good for you. Yeah. Yeah. For me, I'm going to plug, now that I get to this point in the rundown, it occurs to me that I don't know how to pronounce part of this. So I'm going to lean on you for some French
Okay.
pronunciation. Uh,
All right.
Agnes, then the name Aubert,
Yeah, it's
Aubert.
gonna be Old Bear.
Okay. Agnes Aubert's Mystical Cat Shelter, a book by Heather Fawcett. She wrote the Emily Wilde series of books, which I thought was wonderful. And this one, it's like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell meets like Howl's Moving Castle. It's wonderful. It's 1920s Montreal, and this woman runs a cat shelter, and she's just trying to like survive in this world in which there are these gentlemen magicians just like messing stuff up with all their like petty squabbles and all that. So she gets pulled into that world, and I'm about halfway through, and it's just been lovely in terms of the world building and the slow
Mhm.
reveal about this kind of magic system, some of those, but also just the coziness and just the descriptions of all the different absurd cats in the book. It's lovely. Highly recommend it so far.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I also want to plug a couple things. Friends of the show. Number one, in the last episode we did of things looking forward to. One submission, the podcast. It's probably not rocket science from the University of New Mexico. That was one submission for a friend from last episode, and a personal friend plug of what's good right now. Friend of the show, Andrew, his band
Yep,
Summerfuss
yep.
just put out an EP titled Ahead of the Beat, and it's really good.
Oh, cool. Give me the links and we'll drop in the show notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do.
Yeah, and I suppose just tying a little bow on this, one last thing that's good is the new theme music, which y'all have heard from Practical Dinosaur, and that's you,
That
you,
is me.
Practical Dinosaur.
Yeah. That's been really exciting for me over the last, I guess, like 2, 3 years to really get back to playing my guitar a lot more seriously. And you tasked me with, hey, why don't
Mhm.
you do some new intro music? And I found it to be a very fun project.
Yeah, and so that's kind of leads us into this month's show where we want to talk about making art, making stuff,
Yes,
why and
this
how
is
we
good
do it.
art
Yeah.
friends talking about good art from their friends.
Oh, nice, nice. Good spin, good spin. So yeah, so we'll start with the your music since that's what the theme music set us up with. Um, so first, and I know a little bit about this, but probably not fully. Walk me through your history with playing instruments.
Wow, that is so wild for me because I have to consider the fact that like I've been playing music almost my entire life.
Mhm.
Um, I started taking piano lessons when I was really young, probably around 5-ish.
Interesting.
So my mom had me start taking piano lessons. So my siblings took piano lessons. And from there, I went on and I learned to play the trumpet in middle school and
Yep.
then learned to play the drums shortly after that. I always joke that my first job was as a drummer. I
Right. Right. Yeah.
drummed at my church
Church. Right.
when I
Yeah.
was a teenager. And it really just ties into me being in a very musical family.
Mm.
My dad is a songwriter. My oldest sister is also a songwriter and a performer. And music just really was something that I was always around. Um,
Mm.
and I find it to be very gratifying that it is something that I can interact with in a meaningful way.
Hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that you started with piano. Yeah, trumpet. Like when we first met, we were going. It was through a shared love of soccer and going to what
Yes.
at that time was like Carolina Railhawks games, and you playing the trumpet. That might have been later with NCFC, but that's what I had kind of thought of. But recently, you've been playing a lot more guitar. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I started learning the guitar I think right around 20 years ago now,
Mm.
which is really crazy for me to think about. I'm sitting in my bedroom and I'm looking to my left on this guitar stand is a 20-year-old Fender Dreadnought, which was
Cool.
my first guitar given to me as a birthday gift from my sisters. Um,
Mm.
and I learned to play it. I played it off and on. I took it with me to college, continued to play, continued to improve. Um, and then, life happens. I kind of set it down, wasn't really playing it as much. And then life happens and I needed an outlet. And
Okay.
I
Yeah.
started to learn I started really diving back into it and it became something that like, I come home from work and I pick up my guitar and I play for like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 hours a day now,
Mm.
which has been really nice and really cathartic.
Yeah. Can you speak? That's. I was curious. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like um, your songwriting and the time that you spent playing guitar in particular has ramped up over the last what year? Does that seem about right?
Last 2 years or so, yeah.
Yeah. What do you credit that to? Why
I
the uptick?
I credit it to making friends, making new friends and just talking about, playing music and a shared love of playing guitar with some other people and then somebody saying, "Well, you should just play your guitar again. You should just do it." And I'm like, "You know what? That's a fair point." And
Yeah.
so I did. And yeah, it's been really cool. I also want to rewind back
Mhm.
about my first guitar, right? And why it is so important because when I started talking about this, I remembered putting it on like a Christmas list for me. Right. So in high school, let's go back to high school. Um, early double O's, right? Early to mid double O's and Guitar Hero and Rock Band were huge, right? Everybody wanted to
Okay.
play. I wanted to play. And I realized that this is really fun. I love making music. However, playing this guitar feels so bad. And I realized that, oh, you can flip it over and you can play left handed. And I'm like, oh, this makes everything easier. And then I realized there's a huge problem about trying to find left handed guitars. So
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I was putting together a Christmas list one year, I'm like, I'm really a guitar left handed, right? It has to be left handed. And I got one. Um, and it's one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life because now I have to buy left-handed guitars.
Locked in. You have, yeah, my youngest is a lefty, and you have instructed me have her play instruments righty. Yeah.
If it is comfortable and it
Yeah.
is manageable, it would probably be encouraged to play right-handed because it's cheaper. But if it has to be left-handed, you
Hmm.
gotta go with what's comfortable.
Does it do what about like trumpet? Do you use is that different than how a righty plays in terms of which fingers you're using for that, or is that just yeah?
No, I mean trumpets are manufactured basically one way. They're
Mm,
manufactured to be held one way. I think it is basically for almost every instrument. I think maybe no, I mean yeah, even a sax. I think the keys are modeled so that the right hand is on top and the left hand is below. Um,
mm.
yeah, I think all of the brass and woodwind, the concert instruments are single handed.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Now you spoke a little bit briefly about why you've been gravitating towards music more recently. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
How so?
I don't know, what do you get out of playing, writing songs, playing covers? Why? What role does it play in your life?
It's really a big emotional outlet and really something that provides joy and provides a
Mm.
spark in my life. I get to listen to songs I like and I get a chance to learn to play those songs and then get to play those songs for other people excuse me, and to interpret those songs in a way. I like to play music to try to make people feel. I love what I feel when I listen to music, and I always want to be able to give that same energy back out. I think
Okay.
that's really one of my big draws.
So like a form of communication of sorts.
Yeah, a
I
little
like
bit.
that.
I like a lot of music that tells a lot of stories or has something within it that has, something interesting to say, something interesting to follow. I think those are kind of things that I kind of move into and it allows me to push that back out. I find myself to be kind of like a storyteller by trade. So being
Hmm.
able to do that is really fun.
Are there any particular like emotions that you find you need to convey through your music? Like, what do you want people to feel?
What do I want people to feel when they listen to music that I'm creating? I don't know. I want people to feel, right? um, I I really like to make music that will encourage people to move and to be active. I am a very hyperactive person, which is really cool for me to be able to have something to do with my hands when I'm playing the
Yeah.
guitar. And it's just like, cool, like I'm moving. I want you to move with me. Um, so that's what I want people to feel. For me, it allows me to translate a lot of emotions that I have internally. I
Mm.
find that has been one of the major sticking points for me playing my guitar is that it allows me to translate my emotions.
Hmm. I like that. And do you find that you can, in a way, communicate more clearly or just get closer to the truth in a sense with music than you sometimes can trying to articulate it?
I don't know if it's any way of me moving closer to truth. But one thing that I have found in that songs that I personally write, um, is that sometimes it allows me to say things that I would never tell somebody
Ooh.
to their face.
Okay.
And I find that to be
Interesting. Yeah.
very interesting because I try not to write a lot of really pointed things or things about anything in particular, but really
Yeah.
just about relatable feelings and emotions. That is
Mm.
where I try to put myself into. Now, all of this being said, like I do write a lot of emo and punk oriented things, a lot of things that could be construed as sad music. But you know what? That it has to come from somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's fun to be able to just to be able to create something, and you never know if you're able to put something out there that people are going to relate to. And it's interesting because like emo is its own genre, but even before that, we had all of these sad country ballads as well. Like
Mhm.
emo does not have a monopoly on sad music and talking about emotions. Like, we had Jolene, we had the
Yeah.
Tennessee Waltz, right? This goes back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think there's some beautiful about, yeah, your point of just you can say something through a song that's hard to say otherwise. And then when people hear it, it is this beautiful sense of like connection and empathy. Was that James Baldwin quote that switching genres a little bit, but I thought my pain was like unprecedented, but then I read, you know, or even like Inside
Yeah,
Out, sadness as a way to connect, like that is us at our most human. So there's something cool about packaging that into a little 3-minute emo ditty and then
yeah,
sharing it with others. Yeah.
for sure.
What so speak more on some of those influences when you talk about emo, like what has influenced your music?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I listened to a wide variety of music. And of course, like you end up being influenced by what you grow up in. I grew
Mhm.
up in a household that was heavy into gospel, right?
Mm.
Mississippi Mass, trying to think, Fred Hammond, Donnie McClurkin, um, Kirk Franklin, all of those guys, and then you get just like the early soul music, Motown, Stax Records, all of that, because those were the tapes, those are the cassette tapes
Yeah.
that were burned and put into the car for the cross country road trips. That's what I grew up on. And then I started to branch out and hear some other things. And growing up in the 90s and the 2000s, you got the 90s house music craze. We
Mm.
got that. We had I grew up in the Midwest, so rap with Kanye
Mm.
before everything happened. But growing up in Illinois
Sure.
in the early 2000s when college dropout happened was
Mm.
a very pivotal moment. And also in central Illinois in the Midwest when Nelly and the Saint Lunatics happened, and that was a
Sure.
huge thing, and that was really influential to what I was listening to. And then, I started to branch out and try to find things of my own. I discovered Reliant K when I was in high
Mm.
school and realizing that, hey, like guitars are really cool, and playing Guitar Hero and branching out from there and really playing the vast majority of the EA sports games and those soundtracks. Those were huge influences on me and what I was
Oh
listening to,
man.
like the Madden
FIFA
'06
games.
soundtrack, the
Yeah.
FIFA games. Right. Those are huge.
Blur. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think really one of the biggest turning points as far as what I was listening to in my life really pivoted into where I got here was my sophomore year of college when I moved halfway across the continent, as I always say, because I moved halfway across the country, which is also really halfway across the continent.
Mm.
Um, and I went to another college and I had to adjust to life and I was going to a college that was far from my home, within driving distance of my home, but I wasn't going home that often.
Sure.
So it's like, I'm making friends in college, but then I'm going home for the summer to a place that I've only visited on a year to
Mm.
year basis, but I don't have a network of friends here yet. And that was a pretty sad and isolating, I'd say about like 3 years really for me until I was able to start to find my friend group, find my core. Um, when I was here in North Carolina. And in that space was when I started to discover more things within the emo genre. Like My
Oh,
Chemical
interesting.
Romance, when we
Yeah.
talked about The Black Parade, that was an
Uh-huh.
album that was hugely influential on me. I listened to that, and I think there was also around the same time that Danger Days was getting ready to come out, which is
Mm.
why I might have gotten pulled into My Chemical Romance. But it was from there I started to, learn some other bands like, Taking Back Sunday, um, uh, I'm drawing a blank on some of the other like early bands I was listening to. But then from there it's like, you get to dive into this niche and then you start to branch out online to hear what are some
Mm.
other bands, what are other people talking about. And it was really fun for me to find a sound that was really raw, really emotional, really honest, but also like really energetic, which was the one thing that really drew me in. Because it's
Yeah.
just like, I want to listen to something that's going to match the amount of energy that I already have within me and allow me to, match the vibe. Like when you
Mm.
have sine waves that are oscillating and you finally get them to line up with each other, that was the moment for me and allow me to fall into where I am now.
Love that. I didn't realize it was so relatively recent that you started kind of falling into emo and that. Interesting. And
Mhm.
how has this kind of renewed focus on making music impacted how you engage with listening music?
It's really interesting. Because like it's really weird for me as a musician. And I think it's probably something you can talk to people that do other visual art media
Mm.
that say, like, I know what this looks like in my head, but now I have to translate it and make it be what it is in reality, right?
Mm.
And it's things like that. Like for me, I can listen to a song and draw some influences from it. I'm like, okay, cool. I really like this chord movement or this little melody riff and the change in the harmonies here,
Yeah.
which I've noticed other people do, and it's something that I want to do myself. But now I have to figure out how to do it. So now, sometimes I could just listen to a song that I really like and just jam out to it. But sometimes I'll listen to something and I'll just dig into it and say, okay, what do they do here? How did they use this voice within the song, this rhythm track, this lead guitar
Mm.
part? And how did they change this around, or what did they do with this to create this specific moment here? Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess that's kind of cool about music compared to other art forms is that you can be inspired by something and then you can find the actual music and
Right.
recreate it and inspect it in a way that if I'm reading a book by N.K. Jemisin, I can't get the like details of her craft in terms of how she's building that world
Mhm.
and then recreate it and tinker with it and tweak it myself. So that's kind of
Yeah.
neat. Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
currently listening to a song that I first heard round about 20 years ago, right? And trying to dissect that to
Hmm.
try to make some new music. It's things like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, let's get into a little bit more about that kind of song writing process and
Mhm.
performing process because there's
Mhm.
there's two elements here. We can talk about each. You've been kind of working on I always get EP and LP confused. EP is the small one.
It's the first one, yeah.
Okay.
Extended play is the short
Yeah.
one, and then long play is the long one.
Okay, L, I was thinking Loon. Okay, working on an EP, but also like each roughly Wednesday, you've been playing at Bond Brothers, you've been doing some
Mhm.
originals, some covers, all those kind of things. So all this together, what's your favorite part of the process?
My favorite part of the process, I think, is really um, when you see it all come together. I was gonna
Mm,
say like the first germination of the idea because that's fun too. But it's really fun like when you are able to take it from the idea, work on it over the course of weeks to months.
mm,
I've had songs that I've worked on months at a time where it's just like this is almost done, but it's not going to be done until I can make this melody exactly how it is, or
right.
these words need to be exactly right. But that one moment where you're able to put it all together and say, okay, this is exactly what I want this to be, that's the really big payoff. And then being able to perform is a lot of fun. It's nerve wracking at times,
Mm,
but then it's so wild for me just to think about the fact of like, I'm just doing what I normally do when you perform for other people. It's just like other people are looking at you. Um, and it's really fun. And it's fun when you get done and people will tell you that you did a good job. And it's really interesting to learn to internalize and accept that.
oh, that's hard. Yeah, which might bring me to what is your least favorite part of the process?
My least favorite part of the process is when you mess up when you're performing live.
Mm,
It's just really frustrating and it's a very lonely feeling. Um, but you know what? You gotta get back on the horse and keep going.
yeah, yeah. Now, and speaking of that loneliness, you've been writing a lot yourself, and as you've been recording, I've been impressed. You're layering different guitar parts and doing that, but also you've played a little bit with others. Can you
Mhm.
give me a little? I don't know, can you speak on the? Give me a compare and contrast between making music yourself and making music with others.
I'm a very social person. I
Mm,
like to make music with others. Um, I find existing within community to be one of the most gratifying and energizing parts of being a human. Um, and so being able to go out and to make music with other people and to be in community with them and to, push and pull and trade and to give and take and to allow one person to lead and uplift others and
mm,
to interweave and to interlace and interlock. I find that to be so great. And it's an ability, it's an option for everybody really to learn some other things also. Because if you're performing a song with somebody, because like on weekends I like to get together and get into a little jam circle. So you're gonna bring a song, people are gonna learn this song. So you've got to teach this song and then you get to learn that and then you get to learn
yeah,
something new, get to learn how to do something new, and I find that to be really cool.
cool. All right, last question, and if there's anything else you're hoping to speak on, feel free to tack it on. But what are your hopes for your music moving forward?
My hope for my music going forward is that somebody will hear it and somebody will like it.
Mm,
That's really it. I just want I want my music to go out to find somebody and for them to feel an emotion.
right.
And if they feel something meaningful, they feel like they can connect, then I will be very happy.
Yeah, well put. Okay. Thank you for letting me interview you about making music.
Yes. Welcome back to the Good Art Friends. This is Jonathan. I'm with Spencer, and today we're talking about the good art that our friends make. The first half of this episode, we talked about the music that I've been making, and now we get to talk about music without music and its words with Spencer.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, well said.
So,
Well said.
yeah, you do a lot of writing. You wrote a novella that I had the great privilege of reading over the holiday. Um, what brought you into writing?
Oh, my earliest memory of creative writing was in high school. I remember, do you remember the story, The Most Dangerous Game?
Yes.
We had an assignment after that to like write an alternative ending. And I remember creating, and I have really bad personal memory, so it's interesting. This just stuck with me. But I remember writing some like weird ending to it where the guy is able to like break into like the cellar where all these people are being kind of like housed and stored in cages to be hunted. And then he
Mhm.
frees them all, but then they immediately attack him thinking that he was the one behind it. And it was this really weird, dark, tragic ending. And I remember it kind of freaking out my classmates a little. And going back to kind of what you're saying there is just like, oh, just with words, I made people feel something. I took this, and
Yeah.
maybe this kind of even goes back to what we're talking about, covering music and, tinkering. This is an early version of fan fiction, and taking something that someone else created and realizing like, oh, I can create something with it as well. Um, and yeah, that itch kind of stayed with me through high school and college. I didn't act on it much. I think it was that fear of putting something out there, which still horrifies me. Um, that prevented me from really trying and seeking to publish or get something published. Really until I had kids. And then I think a few things pushed me to like, I should do this. I should try.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that is one of the things. I think the generation behind us are latched on to trying as cringe, right? But
Mm.
sometimes you just gotta buck up and push through it. So when you decided to take the plunge and to go in, what was the impetus and what was that first project that really got you to try, as you would say?
Yeah, so it was the first thing would probably be I did a little picture book called The Bubble about a kid that goes to an amusement park and that's their little like kind of bubble of happiness and it's wonderful. They feel completely at peace. Their anxiety, their stress, their fears, all those kind of things goes away when they're eating cotton candy and riding rides and all those kind of things. But then they get home and the next day of school and it rains and they weren't prepared for a test and their friend wasn't there. So they don't know who to sit with at lunch and just they try to hold on to this bubble of happiness, but it keeps popping because it is shallow and superficial. And then they learn essentially to create a more um, authentic and real one based on their relationships and their family and this quality time that really comes after they break down and their family comforts them. And I wrote this when we first had a kid, and I started thinking about, especially my wife and I, struggle at times with anxiety and stress and some of those kind of feelings there, and wanting to be able to give my kids something that I made that maybe could be instructive. Um, so that was part of it. And then from there, moving from a picture book to trying longer forms. Like I self-published a kind of vampire novel. And the other part of it was thinking of just modeling for my kids as well. At this point in time, I was teaching, so I think it was similar. Me telling students like, "Hey, you should write and try to put stuff out there," but then being hypocritical because I wasn't willing to do the same. So modeling for my kids and my students, like it's scary, but try to put something out there in the world, which is very challenging for me. But yeah, I'd say that was the impetus.
Yeah, it is so scary to put something out and then turn and say, I made this, and you have to stand by it.
Yeah, and even I mean, like I have to that, I use a pen name for that reason.
Right.
But that's as much as I'm capable and willing to do.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the most dangerous game, that writing assignment. What are some other books and authors that have been influential on you?
Yeah, I'd say Italo Calvino, um, Invisible Cities, Once Upon a Night a Traveler, Baron in the Trees. He's was a magical realism writer. Um, and it just struck me. I got really into him in college, and just the sense of play in his writing really struck me. And just sometimes you read these things about these like tortured writers as if it is this great burden them making stuff, and that certainly doesn't seem appealing. So the idea of Calvino, just that sense of play and the frivolous nature of his writing coming through as you're reading it, is something that really appealed to me. So that's one, and I might say some of the uh, playing with words from like Emily Dickinson has always kind of struck me, and then the world building of starting with Tolkien, but then going to, like I mentioned, N.K. Jemisin or Neil Stevenson, or recently I've been going down big a rabbit hole with like Brandon Sanderson. Um, that idea of creating a world that wasn't there before, but you are crafting and figuring out the different pieces and putting them in place, I find quite inspiring.
I love that. Um, it's so fun to just be able to let loose in what you're doing and not feel like you have to take it so seriously. So I like that idea of
Yeah.
being able to approach with play.
Hmm.
Um, what is your writing process, your creative process? Like for me, I know like I'm kind of almost always writing
Mm.
because I've got my phone on me and I can just write down lyric thoughts that come in my head or hum a ditty. So for you, like, are you always writing on the go, or do you like to carve out time to just really sit and to go into it?
Good question. So I have, for each project I'm working on, I have a notebook designated just for that. And I spend a lot of time thinking about the right notebook for it. I'm working on a baseball novel next, and I got this really
Mhm.
cool leather bound one with a baseball like embossed in it. It's great. It's great. Um, and this is always essentially on me. It's in my bag. And then as things kind of pop up and occur to me, I'm kind of scribbling it there. So I have sections for characters as I work on the characterizations and plot points and research and all those kind of things there. Um, and part of this just being um, between work and then kids, really, I typically just set aside like one night a week. If things start ramping up, I'll try to get two. So I know that I have, say, Monday night set aside, and then the week leading up to it, I have a sense of like, okay, here's where I left off. And I'm kind of making notes and thinking about how I want to approach it. And then when that night comes, hopefully the kids only, come down 13 times if it's a good night. That's when I sit down and kind of get done what I can. So it's a lot of that, like, playing with it in the back of my head and jotting down some ideas in that notebook, and then having a set time that hopefully is protected. I would love to be able to do more, but that's just, being a parent and all that.
Yeah. All right. I know that I am latching on to the wrong part of this answer, but I have to ask, have a do you specify a notebook per project?
Yes. Yeah.
This is
So, and
so middle school binder folder.
yeah,
I love it so
Trapper
much.
Keeper. Yeah. 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 And it's neat too. And that becomes this memento where, I mean, other thing that I should say is just, it's cool having a physical, tangible object of a thing that I made. So one, that is being able to look at like the Christmas novella, you said Marley's Christmas, and having that around my house, but also then having right next to that the notebook that had all the jumbled mess of kind of plan, the strike throughs, the character names changing, the like, I can't believe that was my original thoughts. I like being able to see that kind of messy process alongside it. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, my life goes into one notebook. It all goes into one notebook.
Mm,
I did get a specific notebook for writing music, a small one that's like on the go so I can jot down lyrics and chords into. So it's just
cool. Yeah.
like something to hold on to, and then if I want to teach something to somebody else. So but usually like the whole point of it is saying that I funnel everything into one thing. So I love
Yeah.
the fact that you have one thing to keep. And it's also a shared love of ours. It's very baseball. You have a scorecard for everything that you
Mm,
write.
yeah. And this is, we are a neurodivergent podcast, but we have different flavors of
Yeah.
neurodiversity. And this is definitely like my autism. Like, no, I need a very specific system. And each notebook is subdivided into all these different sections and I have chapters and all those kind of things. Um, and actually, if I can, I might speak to just a little, because I think I left this out of the answer before. And I do use this podcast as, uh, free therapy. Um, but
Mhm.
I think the writing also comes out of just some of my autism in that, I have that one, I hyper focus, which can
Mhm.
be cool and wonderful, but it can also be exhausting when I can't help it, but my brain just gets stuck on something and just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning. And also, just socializing can be challenging at times. I, unlike you, do not relish those giant social circles. And I find my brain just does these scripting where it just runs through conversations and scenarios, and I just run through these dialogues and potential dialogues of stuff that might happen over and over again. Sometimes that's helpful, but sometimes it's maladaptive. And I find that writing and that notebook gives me a place to kind of channel some of these things so that if I am getting stuck or if I am just running through and I can't help it, just like a dialogue in my head for something I'm stressed about that probably won't ever happen, but a potential conversation, I find that I'm sometimes, not always, but sometimes able to like knock those over into a more productive channel where instead it's focusing on building a world. Instead, it is a creative and productive conversation between characters that doesn't have that kind of anxiety. So that's another element of writing that can help with some of the parts of my brain wiring that I do love, but that can be challenging.
Sweet. Um, Next question is a two-pronged question, and I'm
Okay.
gonna try to make sure they narrow in. Um, for me, this EP I've been working on, I got the inspiration around the month of February. It's a perfect month. It's Sunday to Saturday, 28
Mm,
days. It's a square,
yeah,
right?
I love that.
I
I
love
do
that so
appreciate that.
much.
Yeah.
And so I got inspiration to do that and to do 4 tracks similar or themed around that and inspired by that. So for you, where do you get your inspiration from when you decide that you want to start working on a piece? And also, what genre do you like to go into, and how do you decide how to marry a topic and genre for a project?
Hmm. Good question. Let me think. Here, I'll run through quickly each of my things that I have kind of put out there so far. And maybe that helps to kind of think about what inspired each. So I already talked about like the picture book was thinking of just like dealing with anxiety and wanting something, a product out there for my kids. Um, I mentioned I had a vampire book, which came out of um me hyper focusing on just rich and powerful people preying on the vulnerable. So essentially that whole story was just a way for me to hopefully try to wrap my head around that, and whether things that get uh like Christianity that can get preyed upon and distorted into something else, whether they can be redeemed. Um I don't know if I came out of the process feeling any better about any of that stuff, but it at least gave me a spot to process. The Marley's Christmas is a story of a bookstore owner that gets this set of Christmas carols that reveal the past, present, and future of anybody that touches them. Um, that was, I think, just part of I wanted to write a Christmas book. I read a Christmas carol every year, and I think part of it, in not consciously, but maybe came from it is hard for me to read people. So, like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if this kind of like wish casting, you could get this secret script into people's lives? But then that sets up the tension of the story of like, that's not necessarily how engaging with others works. And the most recent book that I'm just kind of plotting out more so now came from, it's about baseball, and I'm really interested now in the unintended consequences that come out of trying to optimize something. And in baseball terms, this is like I grew up in the time where sabermetrics was just nerds on the internet. And I was one of those nerds on the internet saying like, why don't people use this information? Pay attention to on base percentage and those kind of things. And then the sport did, and then it kind of broke the sport in a way that I find fascinating. And also, I think there's some parallels, and I'm trying to do that Tolkien kind of thing. I don't want anything to be like symbolic. I think allegory is kind of boring at times, but there's a lot in our world of just, especially with technology, of people trying to optimize these hyper efficient systems that have dehumanized people. So that's a long-winded way of saying that oftentimes I think there is something that kind of bugs me one way or another. And then I think the story comes out of me trying to process that. Now, in terms of genre, now these are the ones that I decide kind of act on. I have then a like Google folder with a bunch of different kind of ideas. And it's only once I decide like this is the next one that it gets the journal, the notebook, But I guess those are a bunch of different types of genres. So it kind of comes out of, I guess, organically what the story is and the best way to tell it.
I love that. All right. I have a question that's going to be probably a little bonkers, but it's one that I do
Please.
have. Do you write your books in chronological order? Because, like, for
Ooh.
me, like, sometimes when I write, I don't put the song in order of the way it's going to be. Sometimes if I'm doing a project, it's not going to be layered in the order it's going to show up on the track listing. So, like, will you like start at the end or start in the middle and then branch from there, or find that you need to move a chapter elsewhere?
Oh. Yes, that's a great question. And you'll hear sometimes people talk about writers, be it like gardeners versus architects, where architects are plotting out every single thing and have everything kind of planned out to a T, whereas gardeners are just like, see what grows in the soil that you're setting up and you kind of go with that. It should not surprise you that I am much more an architect, in that I have, in particular, and an author I love, V. Schwab, has kind of talked about this a bit. I oftentimes, I guess I should say, well, the beginning and the end figured out first. And then I'm kind of plotting out how to connect the two. But at least with every project I've had so far, I know exactly how I want it to end and what that payoff should be. And then it's figuring out how to get there. I think that I should try to allow myself to be a little bit more open to where the characters and plot might take it, and perhaps even be willing to change an ending, even though I'm fixated and stuck on it, maybe a little. But yeah, I definitely have it plotted out quite a bit. But I don't always write in order. So oftentimes I'll kind of be tinkering with that last scene all throughout. And if, say, going back to, I find that I'm kind of spinning around a dialogue, I'll jump around. I use Scrivener for a program, and I'll go to that part of the project and start tweaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gonna give you two questions that you gave me.
Okay.
What's your favorite part of the process? We'll start with the ice cream.
Yeah, that's uh it is the planning. It is that when I first get that notebook and I'm playing around with like what to name the characters and I'm doing that kind of big picture outlining. Um, and at that point, I don't get stuck in my own head as much. I don't get frustrated with myself. Kind of your comment before about like making a mistake in public, making a mistake in private. And sometimes I can be hard on myself of just like, this isn't working. Why isn't this working? That doesn't exist in the same way when it's at that first phase of the planning, when it's just kind of playing around with different iterations. Like with this baseball book, it's going to be told through like a kind of fake interview with the kind of protagonist. But I played around with like 10 different kind of ways. Should it be first person? Should it be third person? Should it be epistolary and series of like letters and all those kind of things? I love that part of the process when it the project could go in any number of different directions.
That is I do love the possibility part of a project. That is really
Yeah.
cool. All right. I enjoy to read books. I am very much a completionist in almost all media that I consume. I watch movies through to the credits. I will read a book cover to cover,
Mm.
which means that I know in the acknowledgments there's a lot of things that can go into what is your least favorite part.
Yeah, that for me is the is the actual publishing part in two levels. One, um, the attempt. I feel very uncomfortable with the selling of the project, like the querying process. So essentially, you try to find an agent and you say, "Please consider representing my book," and you are selling the project, and you're writing a cover letter for your novel, and all that is just all the stuff that I love about the creative aspects of writing a novel. None of that exists in the querying process to me. I find that really weird, and the drawing attention to myself I find uncomfortable, and I bragging about it in a way I don't know how to do that. Um, Conversely, if I don't do that, like I've self-published my stuff so far, that then requires you can't just hit publish and expect anyone to know that it exists. So if you
Mhm.
self-publish, then you need to be selling it yourself, which also is very uncomfortable. So I've published a few things, but I have not. I also do a pen name so that no one will know that I publish things, but then that means no one's going to actually read it. So
Right.
I need to wrap my head around either working on trying to get representation through an agent and just trying to get better at that unnatural form of writing for me, or just being more okay with selling stuff if I want to self-publish. And that's both are very challenging.
What's fun for me as a musician doing, emo and punk stuff is that I can lean into the whole DIY aspect and then
Mm.
just like I set up an IG account and a Bandcamp and it's just basically like I exist, listen or don't.
Yeah.
Is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
all right. For you to tie things up, if you could give a piece of advice to somebody who wants to pursue writing, what would it be?
Um, if you have that itch, and my wife always has to remind me of this, so I'm giving this advice for myself too. Um, that do it for yourself. If you are writing because one way or another, there's just a story that you want to tell, or it is some free version of therapy where it helps you to process ideas that you're stuck on or whatever it might be, then whether or not it gets traditionally published or you get it in a bunch of bookstores or all those kind of things is kind of secondary. It's wonderful if it happens. Um, but you can't or I'll speak for myself, I need to be better at not letting trepidation at what might happen after I hit publish prevent me from doing the writing, because I am a happier and healthier person when I do have a project that I can have run alongside me and that I can channel some of my thoughts and feelings and anxieties into. Um, so write and do it for you, and whatever comes out of it comes out of it. Like you said before, if it's just one person, you made them feel something, that's a pretty neat thing when you think about it. So even if it is just one person, and maybe I never know that someone, across the country read a thing and it made them feel something, it made them more empathetic, it gave them some grace that otherwise may not have been there. Like that is a form of magic that is pretty cool.
That is so cool. And I'm really so grateful that I pitched this podcast episode idea to you and you
Yeah.
agreed and thought it was a good idea. So I think it is really fun for, the fact that we both like to create our own art. And we're doing this also because the place where we wanted to do the curling episode wasn't allowing us to come and do curling.
Yeah.
So this is a backup episode.
Yeah, but thank you for pushing me out of my comfort zone. I think this was fun, and hopefully, we're also modeling for others. Tolkien talks about we create because we are created, and this idea of the humans as the sub-creator. And I think that everybody has some sort of art, something that they can make and put out there for the world. And yeah, I encourage, maybe we can encourage people to, not listen to the fears and put stuff out there for others by listening. That's my hope.
Shia LaBeouf, just do it.
Okay. And what's coming? I'm excited. This has been a shared love of ours. What's coming next month?
Yeah, we are reaching for the stars next month. We're doing the film adaptation of Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary.
Yes. So that comes out, was it March 20th or something?
March 20th, which is the same day I'll be going to Art and Bloom.
Okay. Yeah, we have to get our tickets. Let's chat about that off air.
Yeah.
But yeah, listeners, I'd recommend reading the book. I think it's a wonderful book, and we'll talk about both the book and the movie. Don't watch the trailer. It gives away something that when I read the book just blew me away and was one of my favorite moments as a reader in my life. Then watch the movie and then check out our podcast episode talking about the book and the movie Project Hail Mary.
Can't wait.
Yep. All right, Jonathan, my good friend, thank you for talking about making art with me this month.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
All right, take care.